On this week's episode, Josh Peterson and I talk about the possible dark future for August and see if there are any films that will shed some light for audiences this month. We also talk the future of Marvel on ABC and what could be done with the Titanfall series. We also have Sarah Kay from the AniQuest podcast joining us to talk the future of anime on the Netflix and Sony platforms, and another hit song from Hyperschmidt. It's another Cowboy Bebop of podcasting we have for you today as we once again delve into Shucks Howdy, it's the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another pop culture cosmos. Shucks Howdy we have for you today. How's everyone doing out there? My name is Gerald Glassford with Pop Culture Cosmos. Josh is getting me all into this Shucks Howdy mood. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. And speaking of which, who is here to join me but my cohort in crime? He is the mastermind behind Humanica Media, which if you have not checked out yet, you need to on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It's Josh Peterson. Shucks Howdy, how you doing, my friend?
Shucks howdy, man. Who are the big bounties out in the universe this week? Who are we hunting for?
We are hunting for good programming and good films in the month of August. We're also trying to hunt down the future of what's going on with ABC and Marvel, and could that love fest be ending sometime soon? And then also we're trying to figure out what's going on and hunt down some good stuff and good news for anyone that cares to know more about the Titanfall series and wants to see it progress in the future. So those are some things that we'll be talking about today. Plus Sarah Kay from the Sarah Kay will be stopping by, talking some anime, some important news that's come over in the past few days in regards to the anime world. And who better talk about it than Sarah Kay from the AniQuest podcast, which is available on Podomatic, iTunes, and YouTube. And you want to check out her show out. She's got a great show indeed. I truly appreciate the time that she spent. She's going to be coming on later in the broadcast today as well. Well, Josh, before we head on out to talk about a little bit more what's going on with Humanica Media, I want to say congratulations to you with Attack of the Humanicans, which you can which you can hear on the Podcast Radio Network, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Podcast Radio Network, because it is now in the top 20 in its debut month with over 13,000 listeners. This show, the Pop Culture Cosmos show, is number one again, and it's all because of you, and we thank you so much, and thank all of our guests during the month of August as well. If it wasn't for a combined effort between all those entities, and then obviously, most important, you, the listener out there, you have made us number one for the 6th month in a row, and combined with the PCC Multiverse, we're now over 30,000 listeners strong. So that's just truly just awesome indeed. And Josh, when I tell you that, as you ready to get to announce what's going on with Humanica Media, how does it feel to now be listened to by over, well, in your case, 47,000 people a month on the Podcast Radio Network?
Feels good, man. I don't have a speech prepared.
Yeah, just so humble. Good, man, you know.
Hey, seriously though, you guys like us? You love us? Follow us on our social media channels. It helps. Goes great lengths, man. It's a currency of the realm is social media clicks. So we love you guys and we appreciate it. But you know, check out our Facebook stuff too. We're all over the place.
Absolutely. We're on Humanica Media on Facebook and Twitter. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, Pop Culture Cosmo on Twitter, Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. So what is going on with all the great things? You've got a lot of podcasts coming down the pike this week on Humanica Media.
We have a new Attack of the Humanicans, which I'm hoping will be something new recorded, but it might not be. I'm trying to get on top of that. Also, a brand new Topic Eclipse, great new audio quality there, and a brand new episode of the Super BS Gamescast. And for those of you wondering about the What About This podcast, it is still a thing. We're just trying to work out some scheduling conflicts, but it will be back soon, I promise.
Well, that's some great news indeed, because the What About This podcast, Topicocalypse, still can't say that name right. Topicocalypse is a show that I think that you keep it short, but you also hit right on the nose with some of today's really, really tough to deal with, concepts and subjects. When sometimes people really gravitate toward that show, but of all your shows, I think the What About This podcast seems the one that really seems to swing the audience with one way or the other as far as the topics that are discussed, because that show of all your shows, I think, really goes into depth more than any others. Am I wrong, or do you think you get that kind of idea as well? I mean, when I listen to it, that's what I get the impetus. All your shows are great, but I think that one really just, because I think that's one of your older podcasts, I think that's the one that really just, seems more entrenched with what's going on with the topics that are discussed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely the podcast that I've given the most love to, and the guys in it are super smart. They're teachers, pastors, whatever, and they it's kind of they approached me with the concept of it. And I didn't know what it would be like at first, but we've been downloaded, streamed, listened to over 5,000 times. So there's definitely something there. We just got to work on the consistency. But to everyone who has listened to it, thank you very much.
And let's hope it goes forward with that as well, because it's an excellent show. Plus, also as well, again, Topicocalypse, the Super BS Games Cast. Don't want to, not throw some good light on their great podcast as well. And then everything coming down the pike from Humanican Media, including Attack of the Humanicans. So we've got a great show for you today. Again, like I said earlier, Sarah Kay from the AniQuest podcast is joining me to talk some anime with Netflix and Sony coming up later in the program. But Josh, I tell you what, was not quite the weekend that I think everyone was expecting when The Dark Tower was first announced. What are your initial thoughts when you heard that The Dark Tower, by all instances, looks like it's going to maybe meet the studio expectations, but for something that was $60 million in production and tens of millions of dollars more when it comes to advertising and promotion, this maybe did not initially off the bat see the kind of success you were hoping for when it was first announced.
Yeah, no, it's I want to say that I'm surprised, but I'm not. Like, that my reaction would be like, oh, that's weird, but it's such an odd franchise, and unless you're an avid reader or a comic book fan, you don't really know that much about it. Like, unless you're a huge Stephen King fan, it's one of those things where, like, I feel like once enough people start talking about it, like, it'll gain more traction. Maybe once the TV show hits. I hope they still do it. But it's not like it doesn't have the same traction as, say, like a Da Vinci Code does, like other books to movie type things. Like if it was a for example, it's not a Jack Reacher, which didn't do so well either. But there's a lot of or Harry Potter. It's not a property that's as well known as some of the other ones out there, and even
even some of the Tom Clancy books and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly, and even for it's Stephen King's magnum opus, but it's not one of his better among casual readers. It's not one of his better known properties. Like I can go up to anyone and say, "Hey, have you read it?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I love Stephen King." And I'll ask them if they like The Dark Tower. They'll be like, "I've never read it, but I've always wanted to get into it." So I think this is one of those situations where people are either wanting to, now that they know that it's a thing, they either want to read the books first, or they just don't know enough about it to kind of go into it like that. So I think that it's, word of mouth is obviously really good, but I still have hope that's going to gain traction. What are your thoughts?
Well, I wanted to ask you one more thing in regards to it, but now I'll share some thoughts on maybe why there was a tepid interest this weekend at the box office. But is this a case where the power of Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, and the critical mass seems to maybe gain an interest this week? Although I will say that Sony themselves were kind of leery on The Dark Tower themselves, because they did not allow they did not allow reviews to be posted until later this week, which shows that they didn't have much confidence in the film itself as well.
The Dark Tower, at least the film adaptation, took so long to get off the ground. I think that we're probably looking at one of these situations like what with Warner Brothers and Batman vs Superman, where the studio wanted to have such tight control over everything that I'm imagining they didn't really give the director or the creators much power to do what they wanted to when it came to exploring this vast property. So I'm hoping that, because I think that if they gave the first Jack Reacher a sequel, that we won't have to worry about the Dark Tower being put in the trash can. But I hope that moving forward they kind of learn a lesson from this, and because it's got no shortage of talent, and the source material is extremely interesting. But I think there's a lot of studio micromanagement going on here. So
I agree with you on that, because it definitely feels like it's been a film that's not met up to standards for a Stephen King adaptation, because the lukewarm reviews and also the 90-minute runtime, I can tell you firsthand from a lot of people I've been interacting with either on social media or in the real world, that kind of, even though it was a late reviews being posted, I think that had a little bit to do with it this weekend, and then also definitely that those that short running time it usually doesn't spell well for elaborating on a brand new IP, just something like that, right? Correct?
Right. And look at it this way. We always talk about this, but I think in this case there are two types of reviewers. The ones who really love the source material in the books. I'm sure there are some out there, because this is just it's hard to take a movie like some source material like The Dark Tower and mess it up, unless there's another factor here we're not seeing, I'm sure. But back to reviews, I think that there's either the reviewer who really loved the books and was kind of disappointed that some of this, like a lot of the stuff, was left out, and there's also the reviewers who they want, essentially, since Sony barred them out, they wanted to go in hating this movie. Like, it happens all the time. There's so many critics out there because we're a society that has become so critical of everything, yet we don't have the talent to create it ourselves, but all we can really do is judge it, and they really wanted to hate this movie. And that happens with just about every adaptation out there.
Well, those are some great points indeed. If you have any thoughts on The Dark Tower and why it did not perform up to a lot of expectations, from seeing the first trailer that got everyone so excited to now, please share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Humanica Media, Game Source, and Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook and Twitter as well. So that's one down. That's one major film down in the month of August. And I'll tell you what, Josh, looking at the rest of the month, this could be in a year, or in a summer, where audiences are down almost 10% from what last summer was at this time was doing. This could even turn out to be a worse for the movie industry, because this August really looks like a movie drought as far as hit movies are concerned. So what are your thoughts on the rest of the month? Do you see anything that might connect with audiences? Annabelle 2, Logan Lucky, The Hitman Bodyguard, or excuse me, not The Hitman Bodyguard. What was it? The Hitman's Bodyguard, The Nut Job 2. These are not on the surface, looking like that they're going to be box office smashes. Although, someone has got to break out from the pack, correct?
Yeah, definitely. They're not movies that are, I guess you wouldn't really consider them blockbusters that people be flocking to. I know because The Hitman's Bodyguard has Ryan Reynolds, Samuel L. Jackson. You have what was the other one? It was,
well, there's The Nut Job too. That's with Will Arnett. You've also have The Hitman's Bodyguard with Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson. You have Logan Lucky, which we talked about with Channing Tatum, Daniel Craig, and Adam Driver. That one might actually have some promise. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I feel like that's going to be kind of pick up the traction like Baby Driver did. So it'll be one of those things where it'll start out low and then it'll start to grow as more people kind of see what it is.
Because Baby Driver domestically is just about ready to hit at the end of its theatrical run over $100 million, right? It's right at that point right now. So that's definitely could be some good news indeed. And there's some favorable reviews already out for Logan Lucky right now. So that's definitely a good sign. And Steven Soderbergh, if somebody's like me who has enjoyed the Ocean series and what he's brought to the table already theatrically, I'm hoping for good things there. But is it me, or do you have a feeling? I feel like this is now at the period of time where it used to be for January, where movie companies seem to just throw out just dead movies that were DOA and just had to throw them because of contractual obligations. Mm-hmm. And now it seems like August is being left for dead, because September you have you have a really solid movie coming out in the new Kingsman movie, and October you have Blade Runner 2049, and these are films that should, by all intents and purposes, exceed both the expectations of anything that may come out in August.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so the other night I was looking at movie tickets. I was trying to get my tickets for the Dark Tower, and movie tickets are about $14.50 now. They're almost $15. So you go and you take into account, like, even a child's ticket is about $10 now. Like, there's hardly any discount on it. So do you think that a lot of these low box office numbers are due to the fact that people just don't want to take their kids to the movies anymore? Because think about it. Once you go in, you have a family of 5, you have a couple kids, maybe a teenager, you end up, paying upwards of $60, plus you go and get your popcorn and stuff. That's like $100 night. That's like a trip to Disneyland for somebody. So I feel like it's not, they don't need to do that. Because I remember back when I was in high school, a ticket cost $9, maybe $8.50, depending on when you went. But
I won't even tell you what it was when I was in high school.
But it's just become so ridiculous. But for the price of getting one person into a movie, you could buy the movie when it comes out. So what are your thoughts on that?
That's an excellent point, because if it's something where a film is not a must-go, a must-see, then people are, I think, sending a message to these theater chains that they don't like the rising prices. For us in Vegas, yeah, it's $12, it's $13, and you said $14 for you. I believe in New York it's even higher than that. So I tell you what, if the movie is not a go see film, and Dark Tower by all instances is not for a lot of people, unless you have a real vested interest like you do, it's not a must go film. Must go see film. It looks like that by all intents and purposes, people are shying away, and like you said, they're going to rent it on Redbox, or when it comes to Netflix, or get it on Amazon, get the DVD. It really is, or the Blu-ray. It looks like something that they're going to be able to start dictating, and the possibly, if it continues this time next year, and we're talking about the same thing this time next year, then it really could be a problem for the movie theater chains out there and the film industry, because it looks like people are saying with their wallets, hey, if you're not going to send us out a good product, then maybe we shouldn't go see these films. Although we say that, and Emoji Movie still did what it did last weekend, although it was cut in half this weekend, it still garnered enough interest so that people had to, still had the desire to go see it. So I don't know. It's a kind of a tough say, but I definitely I'm starting to see your line of thinking as far as, if it's not a must go see film, then people are shying away from it. And the midweek specials, maybe those will rise as far as when theater chains during the midweek offer discounted tickets, maybe those days will rise enough to give them the idea that, hey, maybe we need to start leveling the playing field off for all 7 days a week instead of just lowering it just for a few short days a week, and maybe we should just reevaluate how we do business, because if these theater prices continue to rise, hey, I'm going to be right along with you and only seeing maybe a few films each year. What are your thoughts? Oh, go ahead.
One more thing, even with like must-see movies, though, you're seeing less when you go to see like the big like Marvel or DC or Disney films. You're seeing less and less like large families filling out these theater seats, and mostly it's just it's millennials, it's a couple senior citizens, people who are drunk and coming from dinner because obviously they're not inhibited enough to notice the price problems, but you're going to see less and less families. And I think even with big popular movies, that's going to continue to be a trend. And it should be showing up right now. I don't think it has as much. We're getting to a point where critical review is not going to have as much sway over people going to see movies as much as it is prices.
That's definitely some sound reasoning. And with the advent of increased prices due to IMAX 3D, they praise the price if the sound performance has been enhanced in some cases, theater renovation to add those nice, comfortable reclining seats. They jack the prices up because of that. There's a lot of reasons why that the prices are being jacked up across the board at theaters around the country. So definitely that is a concern for the average consumer, indeed. Because I'll tell you what, it's not good when you could just keep on hiking those rates, because both you and I thought at one time going to the movies was a nice, solid, economical way of having a good time when you're out of the house. And now it's definitely, like you said, $100. When you take that out of the context, $100 when you spend after spending just one night with the family, it doesn't look like it's that economical deal anymore that the movie theaters once represented to general audiences. What are your thoughts on the movie industry? Is it becoming too expensive to go out to the theaters? Let's share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com, Humanica Media, Game Source, and Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook and Twitter as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie industry. Is it becoming too expensive to go see films these days? Is that's what holding you back because the advent 3-4 months down the line of the routine practice of releasing these films on DVD and Blu-ray? We can just get it easily right away. So share us your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you on that. And thank you again from the bottom of our hearts here at Pop Culture Cosmos and Humanica Media for the 47,000 listeners that listen to our shows in the month of July. We are truly in your debt as far as doing that is as well. So we truly appreciate it indeed. We've got a great show lined up for you today. Sarah Kay will be joining me after the break, and then Josh and I will come back in the middle and talk some ABC and Marvel, and then we'll close out the show after another segment with me and Sarah. We'll close out the show talking a little bit about Titanfall and Titanfall 2 and the expectations that it had, that it's not meeting up to, and what we think might go on with the series from there as well. So we truly appreciate you joining us, and we got to have a song before we head out to our first break. And it's our good friend Chad again from Hyperschmidt. This is Hyperschmidt, and this is After All. And this is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. And Josh, I know have been keeping somewhat an eye on ABC and Marvel. I know you're not as like me. You're not as big a fan of what they're doing with the Marvel product on ABC television as opposed to what they're doing with Netflix. But recently, there's been some comments that have been made in regards to the future of Marvel shows on ABC. So I wanted to get your thoughts. First up, the Marvel's Inhumans series that will first be run on the IMAX films, as far as for that first initial episode, and then be run on ABC after that. And because there's an IMAX 8-episode partnership that's going to be debuting on the big screen first, according to IGN, and then a whole bunch of other stuff going on with the ABC Marvel future as well. But first, I want to get into Inhumans, and I want to ask you first, what are your thoughts with Marvel Inhumans? I know you and I have said before that maybe it's not going to shape up like we'd hoped. I know a lot of feedback has been coming out for Medusa on her wig in the trailers. It's not looked very threatening, I should say, for lack of a better term. But what are your thoughts on the Inhuman series first off? And could it be something that Marvel and ABC could really rely on in the future? Or something that maybe they should reevaluate before the series really goes forward?
This is my thoughts on Inhumans. It's like being promised a pizza and then instead getting a bowl of cheese, because they promised us a movie.
As long as it's mozzarella, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. No, it's Mexican sharp cheese. Okay, so it's
if it's cotija, I don't mind.
It's Kirkland brand. All right, this is what we're talking about here.
Okay, there you go.
They promised us a movie. They promised us a movie with Vin Diesel. They promised it'd fit into Marvel Phase 3. Then it didn't. Then it got canceled. Then Vin Diesel became Groot. Then they told us it was going to be on ABC, and it was still going to have good production quality. And they show us the hair, and it just looks like a 12-year-old's After Effects project. So, yeah, I'm not too stoked about it, honestly. Like, I'll probably watch it, but I'm not on pins and needles waiting for it.
Either that, or you'll go to your local elementary school to see what's going on with the latest project. I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah, I'll just hang out in the computer lab and see who's creating the latest After Effects using YouTube tutorials.
There you go. There you go. So, the reason why I say that is because there's been recent talk by the president of ABC in regards to comments that he made during the latest TCA, the Television Critics Association. He's been talking about, yes, they understand that there's a semblance of quality that they're used to within their series of what goes on in that complex, the context of ABC and Marvel. And then they realize what's going on with Netflix and their associations with Marvel. And I see a lot of people still gravitating towards the shows on Netflix. So, Josh, should they reevaluate how their shows on ABC are presented? Because it looks like at this point in time they're getting blown out of the water by what Marvel is doing on Netflix. Because Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., even though it's been given a full season, the numbers have not been effective. And more importantly, it's been delayed. Even though it is getting a full season pickup, we don't know how long, if it was, we don't know how long much after that the series is going to get from ABC. So I think that can be attributed to people's love for the Netflix shows primarily.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., after the first season, it kind of became super dreary. Like, as soon as the novelty of the show wore off, it became dark, and it became like this show full of people whining and having conflicts that didn't even need to happen. And let me ask you this. Okay, would you be as interested in the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe if they didn't all eventually cross over at some point?
I would be more interested in the ABC features if, like you said, they crossed over, because I think that's what they need. I think that's the kind of shot in the arm that the ABC series. The Netflix series don't need it because they seem to do very well on their own, because they gave themselves their own shot in the arm by coming together as defenders. Whereas you have these ABC shows that seem to want to stand on their own. And unfortunately, in cases they've already, in some cases, like Agent Carter, which actually itself had a really, really good first season and seemed to go downhill in the second season. Now, even though both the star, Haley Atwell, and the showrunners have expressed interest in returning back to the series in some form and to the character in some form as well, I still don't see a good future going forward as far as anything planned, because, like I said, the way ABC handled that show is similar to the way that they're handling the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point in time. So I definitely think they could use a shot in the arm, and I think the Netflix series of the Daredevil, of Iron Fist, even Luke Cage and Jessica Jones coming over into that universe would be really, really the shot they need. I think the only glimmer of hope in recent times for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series has been the reemergence of the Ghost Rider. Is that correct?
Yeah, and even that was, not as well done as it could have been. So what I would like to see is I would like to see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. maybe go bye-bye from ABC, but come back onto Netflix as a 12-episode order that could cross over with the Defenders. And at the same time, because I think that they're trying to tell stories in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that are so large and so at points convoluted that they cannot keep up with their own mythos.
Because they're asked to do it over a course of a 22-week period.
Right. So I think that a shorter episode order and a story that makes us still feel like we're tied into the greater Marvel universe would do leagues with with fans and keeping that show alive.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as much as like I said, I enjoyed the Agent Carter series in the first year, I really don't know if audiences will have enough left. Maybe with a movie, TV movie, if it should do that, they would be receptive to that. Or maybe with Agent Carter somehow infused into some aspect of the Marvel universe again. That seems to always go over well. But her back into her own series, I'm not sure if it's going to be done correctly to the point that it would garner back that audience it once had again. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think these are steps that they need to take in regards to Netflix. Their success with the Marvel series needs to infuse the ABC series that are still, in desperate need of some repair. And even before the Inhuman series comes out, it looks like they're getting a lot of flack, and they need a shot in the arm already, and the series hasn't even come out yet. So that's not exactly the greatest sign in the world either. But as we go forward, I will definitely speak to this to our friends at the TV Ratings Guide and TVRatingsGuide.com. Hopefully, as the weeks go on and progress, when the series comes out, we can talk more about the Inhumans and how well or not so well it's doing with its performance this season. What are your thoughts on Marvel and the ABC universe tied in together? Do you think it's at an all-time low? Do you think they need a shot in the arm, or do you think everything's going just fine? Are you excited for the Marvel Inhuman series? Are you excited at the prospect of possibly maybe infusing those series with each other with a Netflix series? Share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanican Media on GameSource and Twitter. And if you cannot, for some reason, catch our shows on the Podcast Radio Network, we are always available for download. We're going to be available for download at any point in time on iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, the Ace Podcast Network, Overcast.fm, Player.fm, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Podcast.com, Mixcloud, the ESO Network, the Tangibound Network, the Gunna Geek Network as well. We've also added Cast Crunch, of course, our home site, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. We're also adding the socialpodcast.com network And also as well, we're looking into Podomatic as well to maybe run an episode now and then on both of those platforms as well. And if you do download our shows, you always get a bonus thrown in for you just because we love you right here from the Pop Culture Cosmos. When we return, I'm going to come back with Sarah Kay from the AniQuest podcast. She's going to talk a little bit more about anime and also the Sony platform. We're going to talk about how the Sony company is actually doing some great things and making some waves in the anime world when we come back. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being here today as we close out the program for today. It's been a great pleasure to have Sarah Kay from the AniQuest podcast on. We truly appreciate her joining us and talking some anime. If you want to check out her show, it's on Podomatic, YouTube, and iTunes. I kept calling it Podbean, and I know you're the Podbean guy. I got to get that straight. So I did want to mention before we go on the way out, Josh, and we talk about that good stuff going again, once from Humanica and whatnot, but Electronic Arts recently had its investor meetings as well, and one of the things they talked about is obviously how well Battlefront's doing and its future. They talked about how Battlefield 1 going back into World War One seems to have been a good move for them, as they now have over 20 million players, as well as the Battlefront series. But one of the things that also was talked about amongst all their other projects was the fact that Titanfall 2, although the numbers were, in their opinion, paraphrasing here, pretty strong and whatnot, it still hasn't met up to expectations. And with the original Titanfall also not meeting up to expectations, that's 2 times in a row for a series which has been very critically received, very well thought of. The campaign on Titanfall 2 is considered really strong for a first-person shooter campaign. So I ask you, Josh, what's gone on that's so wrong, and why people have not connected with the Titanfall franchise?
To me, it's the idea of not having a single-player game going out the gate. That's because they started out with no single player, made the jump into single player, but it's still mostly a multiplayer game. I think that right now they're kind of confused. They don't really know what they want to be, and I think because of that disconnect, and especially to me, there wasn't. If I wasn't on the video game news sites constantly reading this stuff, I would have never known there was a single player in it. And I know with the multiplayer in the first one, people just got burnt out on it after a while. Yeah, because it's and as far as the single player goes in Titanfall 2, I think that it's not as well received with people because it was something they kind of threw together at the last minute because to cater to a certain audience instead of actually putting thought into it.
Well, I definitely. Oh, you still there?
Yeah, sorry, I clicked the wrong thing here.
Oh, I'm like, hello. Well, I can tell you this, that I know you and I did a lot of foreshadowing last year, and also as well Douglas Hoylebu, pretty much you guys as the video game guys to go to in regards to thoughts in the video game world on Titanfall 2, and that it came right around the time that Battlefield 1 came out, and also the latest Call of Duty came out. So I think pretty much we were talking about spelling doom for the series and the game, because it seemed to get sandwiched in between those other games that were probably better promoted. Obviously ended up being more successful, even though Call of Duty is still not meeting the numbers that Call of Duty expects. That's still leagues above what probably Titanfall is doing at the moment. So I think it's an issue of EA not being proactive enough to put Titanfall in the best frame of light with the gamers. I think if this game came out in February or March of last year or this year, I think we'd be seeing it in a totally different light. And I think it might have even garnered quite a substantial following more because of it. I think because it would have come out in a time where there's not as much competition. And after seeing, another Electronic Arts debacle with Mass Effect Andromeda, people probably would have gravitated to Titanfall 2 even more because, again, it is a very, very well received critical game. It just has not translated into a large general audience. I've actually spent quite a bit of time in the Titanfall world, especially with the original, and it just, it's a really solid game. But like you said, it would have been nice for a single player campaign, which is similar to what they did with Battlefront. But Battlefront seems to have survived and thrived still, even without constant complaints as regarding to a single player campaign. Is that just because people were so starved for a Star Wars product that had any type of quality whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the past, 5 or 6 years, we've just had promises of Star Wars games, cancellations of Star Wars games. There's even like a brief murmur of a remaster of Shadows of the Empire going around for a while. Never saw the light of day. They killed us with this amazing trailer for Star Wars. What was the Bounty Hunter one? It's 20 something.
I think 1313.
1313, yeah. And
that looked beautiful.
That looked amazing, and lo and behold, we did not get that either. So, yeah, I think we're just starved for something because it's funny because I almost feel like that's one of the reasons people did enjoy Battlefield or Battlefront so much, just because it was Star Wars content, and we haven't had a lot of that in a while. But I think if there were already like a slew of Star Wars games out, like Call of Duty, like Call of Duties and Battlefield, it probably wouldn't have garnered such great reviews.
I agree with you on that. It just it's disappointing to see because Titanfall as a series, it's not something that's come out and has been dumped on shelves with a subpar quality, with a subpar touch. I mean, the pedigree is there. The creators were very heavily involved in the Call of Duty series. Vince Campella really just, they've been there for the highest of quality of Call of Duty series, and it looked like, a lot of that love and polish was going to go into Titanfall as well. And in a lot of cases it is. As a multiplayer game, especially the first game in the series was really good as far as a multiplayer platform, and I really enjoyed it. I felt actually in the series myself, even playing periodically was competitive, and that's for me, as someone who loves first-person shooters, who is not good at first-person shooters when he does it on the competitive field, is always a great thing for me to have as a gamer. So it was quite disappointing to hear that the game is not doing well as a series. So the future for Titanfall is definitely in question. EA did not commit to a Titanfall 3. They said they're committed to the franchise, but did not exactly give the warm and fuzzy feeling all over for a Titanfall 3. So I'm hoping that they will get another stab at it, because this is a game series that's not bad in quality. It's just bad in the way that it's been promoted and shown off to gamers. So I'm hoping for at least one more stab at it before they finally give up the thought of having Titanfall as another tentpole franchise. What are your thoughts on Titanfall, the series? Please let us know. Did you enjoy both games? Is it something you'd like to continue in the future as a gamer? We'd love to hear your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, and Humanica Media on Facebook and Twitter as well. And if you get a chance out there and you do download our shows, please give us some love. If at all possible, we'd be so indebted to you. And if you just go ahead and share those reviews, subscribe, and do all those great things that gets us some love and some notice on not only Apple Podcasts, but all those other download platforms as well, because we like to make ourselves not only available to on as many platforms as possible, we want to make ourselves the best show possible. We keep trying to do that each week with new and interesting guests, new and interesting current topics in the pop culture platform, and we definitely can't do it without your love, and we just appreciate us being so successful on the Podcast Radio Network. And again, it is all because of you, and we truly cannot thank you enough. So before we head on out, Josh, I know you still got, like I said, some stuff going on with Humanican Media. Shed some light one last time on what's going on with everything going on with your wonderful platform known as Humanican Media.
Yeah, just there's a few podcasts coming at you. You can still tune in Tuesday nights at 7 on the Podcast Radio Network for Attack of the Humanicans. We have a new Super BS, new Topicocalypse, all with updated audio quality, which it's been a long time in the works there.
And he is so proud of it too. So you got to give it a listen, because he is definitely. It is definitely worth a great listen now, because it's definitely, you're right on that. The audio has improved, and I can now hear everything crystal clear, and all the times that you guys go ahead and insult each other on the Super BS Gamescast.
It's like going from listening to a Rush album to listening to an Aerosmith CD. So it's that helps you at all. But yeah, we got that, and we are working on What About This, so don't lose hope in that podcast. It will be back.
Oh, that's some great news. And again, follow Josh's sites on Twitter and Facebook at Humanican Media, and all the different platforms for all of his podcasts. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day here in paradise. It's another beautiful day here in paradise, here in the pop culture cosmos. We thank you for listening. Shucks howdy. And here's hoping you have yourself, shucks howdy, a great day.